There we go. Thanks, Eva. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share screen our presentation. So give me a moment. All righty then. Can everyone see it? Awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. So as y'all know, we represent the organizers for the California Dream Network. We're a statewide organization that is comprised of undocumented youth, allies, and young workers, and folks that are in between that come from mixed status families. This campaign was something that we are partnering up with our youth group called Wise Up, which is the high school component for CHIDLA, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. And we've noticed that this has been something that we needed to support a lot of y'all, especially during the pandemic, because y'all are going through it right now. So this information is definitely something for you to share with any friends that you know that are interested in going into private universities, or even giving information to your parents, because this whole process can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming. But before we begin, let's go ahead and introduce you to the organizers that comprise of the California Dream Network. My name is Janet Bucio. I'm the Southern Regional Organizer for the California Dream Network. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I've been with CHIDLA since I was in high school, but as staff, I've been here for about 4 years, and it's been an amazing journey. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to Lupita.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lupita Martinez. I am the CDN statewide organizer. I specifically organize our youth in the LA and coastal region. So if you're looking to get plugged in and get involved, please contact me. There is my email. Pretty good at responding. So just shoot me an email and I would love to get to know you better.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Valen. I'm the Central Valley organizer for CHIDLA and the California Dream Network. I organize from Bakersfield all the way to Stockton, everything in between. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll pass it to Eva.
Hey, everyone. My name is Eva, and I'm the Northern Regional CDN organizer, and I organize up here in NorCal. So that consists of Sacramento, Davis, and Bay Area. So thank you for being here.
And I forgot to mention the regions that I organize that are considered the Southern region is like Walnut, Pomona, San Bernardino, Riverside, Irvine, Orange County, and South Orange County. So for those of you that live in that area, that's definitely, you can hit me up and we can talk about what resources or any leadership development that you can have. But let's go ahead and continue with today's workshop. So you're probably wondering what's happening today. So we're going to be going over a little bit about the California Dream Network, who we are. We're also going to go into understanding the purpose of the California Dream Act campaign. And you're also going to receive firsthand experience and resources from undocumented college students and college professionals. And then more so college professionals, and we'll go ahead and introduce them in a bit. But before we do that, I just want to let you know, like, who is CDN? Like, who's the California Dream Network? And to let you know, the California Dream Network is primarily of college students or young workers. The network itself seeks to serve as a primary source for innovative ideas and action to enhance the plight of undocumented students. We work in the state level, we work in the federal level, and we work at the local level to try to make sure that we are that policies are inclusive of immigrants, because sometimes they don't include us in that. And so here's a quote from our mission handbook, and it states that our mission is to serve as a base for mobilization, politicization, and empowerment of young people, regardless of their citizenship status, political affiliation, gender, sexual orientation, and ethnic nationality in the larger social movement for equal access to education, immigration reform, economic and social justice. And the way that we do that is through leadership opportunities. Like I mentioned, the local, state, and national advocacy. In that way, we began with our high school component called Wise Up. And Wise Up understood that there was a lot of things in higher education that weren't available. So after so many undocumented students decided that enough of no information for folks to get a higher education, they went ahead and pushed for legislation like AB 540, which is in-state tuition for undocumented students in California. And those students, after getting that win, decided to push for more legislation once they became college students. So you have students that were able to push for the California Dream Act and other legislation through participating in steering committees, community organizing, phone banking, canvassing, just to name a few. And once those high school students went to higher education, they met another obstacle, which most of the administration didn't even know some of these policies have passed. So back in November of 2014, there was a group of steering leaders from the California Dream Network, a statewide steering. We had folks from the Northern region, Central Valley, LA, and Southern region who got together for a planning session and went to visit one of the first undocumented resource centers at UC Davis. As you can see here, there's a picture of the steering leaders, and you can see me right there, baby Janet. But we were amazed by the amount of resources that were available in this center. Not only did they have a coordinator that specifically counseled undocumented students what kind of classes they needed to take in order to pursue their academic journey, but they even provided them legal services. And that was something that just blew our minds. So we started a campaign in the state level to try to push for a mandate for undocu resource centers throughout California. And it was a long fight from 2014 to now, like recently 2018, we were able to pass a legislation that mandated at least one professional called the Dream Liaison Bill that would designate at least one coordinator, undocumented coordinator or counselor to help undocumented students navigate resources that we were able to push through years before to access higher education for undocumented students. So that's a little bit of history for y'all. So the reason why we decided to do this campaign for the California Dream Act was we've noticed a high percentage of students not taking advantage of the financial resources that were available for them. And this was something that led a lot of different reasons. We had a big political background that was happening with DACA. And we also had the pandemic that kind of followed suit and just kind of landed in the middle of this fight in the Supreme Court with DACA. So because of that, we've noticed a big decline of people applying for the California Dream Act. So we decided that now that we have all this resources, we need to provide that kind of information to students and let them know that they can go and get their higher education, whether it's a public or private university. And now we're noticing that there was a recent passage of resources called AB 469 that would allow low-income undocumented students to apply for CADAA, which is an underway, but outreach is still needed for us to ensure that undocumented students are informed with this opportunity, which is extra funds for y'all to get your education. So that's some of the challenges that we faced. And then of course, it's also goes to show that a lot of the students that are struggling to apply to these financial resources are also dealing with a lot of mental health and barriers at school, because sometimes some of these campuses don't even have these resources that we were able to push. So just so you can see a little bit what we've done so far, we started with our financial workshop for community college. That was last week. This week, we touched on financial workshops for students in the Cal State level. That was yesterday. Today, we're going over the private universities. Next week, our organizer Eva is going to be leading our financial workshop for students that are currently going to UCs. And then we will also have a statewide Dream Resource Center Coalition meeting later in March. So, and then as a reminder for folks, again, March 2nd is going to be the deadline for the California Dream Act. So that's a couple weeks away, or not even so many weeks, but that's coming up soon. So make sure to get started. Yes, to go on today's workshop, we're going to go ahead and begin with Susan Reyes, who is a legislative coordinator with AACU. And then following Susan, we're also going to have Daniel Caballero, who's going to, he's the assistant director for first gen programs at Pomona College. And he'll talk a little bit about the resources at that private university. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass the mic to Susan. Susan, just let me know when to go to the next slide and I'll do that for you.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate the introduction and the invitation to get this information out here. And like you said, the countdown begins. I actually looked at my calendar and it's 13 days until March 2nd. So thank you for this opportunity. I hope that we share this presentation far and wide to students and families. So today I'm going to be presenting a little bit about just big picture about AACU. So you can move on to the next slide. So these are our learning objectives for today. I hope that when you walk away from this presentation that we will be able to debunk myths that you've heard about AACU institutions, and that you'll have a better understanding of the independent sector's relationship with AB 540. We'll talk about the California Dream Act application, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of how the independent higher ed institutions are affordable. And then we'll learn about how independent nonprofit private sector resources their undocumented students. And then I'll talk about a survey that we conducted last summer and some key highlights of that, of some resources for undocumented students. And then we'll go into a really neat resource, the California Undocumented Student Resources Map. And then I'll talk a bit about our advocacy efforts, coalition building, and some informational events. Okay, next slide. Common myths and concerns. The first one I just want you to ignore because although this is a valid, it is a myth, it's not relevant to this group. Our institutions, most of them are Title IV institutions that provide Pell Grants to eligible students. But as we know, undocumented students are not eligible for the Pell Grants. So don't want to confuse people. So don't even worry about the FAFSA. The next one, undocumented students are not eligible to apply to ICCUs. That is not true. And I'll go into that because a lot of our institutions are undocu ally friendly. And we'll talk about how as an undocumented student, you're eligible for Cal Grant, and therefore you can apply for Cal Grant, and then you can also apply for an independent college or university and receive financial aid. I was told I need a co-sponsor to apply. Whoa, this is one that I recently heard, and I don't know where that one came out of, but maybe the person advising the student was misinformed and was thinking maybe the student was an international student. I don't know, maybe they were thinking they needed a sponsor to sponsor them here in the United States. I don't know what, but that is not the case for our institutions. And then the last one, it's too expensive. And this is one that I hear the most. And students and families will tend to write off independent institutions just because they think it's too expensive. They get scared of the price tag. And I want you to really walk away from this presentation debunking that myth, because there is a way that you can afford it. Next slide, please. How much will it cost? So next slide. So this is from national data. Full cost of attendance, the sticker price includes tuition and fees, room and board, books, supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. So yes, if you do compare a private college with a public college, the difference, the price tag is significantly different. 54,000 versus 26. Now, if you look at the net price, that gap is much shorter. So once you factor in all the grant aid, it helps close that gap. And so that's why we say, don't write off the possibility that you can go to an independent college or university. And I'll talk more about that. Next slide. Affordability and debt. So the maximum Cal Grant award in California right now, thanks to last year's modest increase in the budget, is now $9,220. The Pell Grant, it's $6,495. And again, like I said, undocumented students are not eligible for the Pell Grant because that is federal funds. However, we are advocating, we do have a campaign right now to double the Pell and include DACA students. So if that were the case, then there might be a potential to expand eligibility for undocumented students. 68% of our undergraduates receive institutional, state, local, or federal grant aid. This shows that a majority of our students are receiving some type of aid, and thus our institutions try to provide the most beneficial package to our students and families. We can go on to the next slide. Don't want to spend too much time here because I want to talk about how this really works out for a student. Like Jesus Gomez, he is a student at Fresno Pacific University. He is the founder of the Future Citizens and Allies program, which is a resource program for undocumented students that he founded on campus, and is also part of our Independent California Colleges Advocate program. And he's just really blossomed throughout the last 3 years that I've known him. Now, how does his experience work as an undocumented student? So Jesus meets the AB 540 criteria, which allows him to apply for the California DREAM Act application. So I think the AB 540 criteria says, as long as you've attended high school in California for 3 years, you can apply for the California DREAM Act. So Jesus pretty much grew up, he came here as a young child, grew up in the United States, and graduated from high school in California. He's from Porterville, California, and decided to stay locally. He ended up going to Fresno Pacific University, which is in the Central Valley region. His institution, because he qualifies for the CADA application, for the CADA, his institution can offer him the Samaritan Scholarship, which is a scholarship for undocumented students who receive Cal Grant funds. And this helps cover full tuition. Through this process, Jesus's higher education experience is made affordable. So, as I was going back to our objective about understanding the relationship between AB 540 and our institutions. So our institutions obviously don't have a waiver that students have to fill out, because we're independent colleges and universities that we have a set tuition, right? So in-state, out-of-state, pretty much everyone pays the same price, right? So we don't work the same way as our public counterparts. But because Jesus was able to meet the AB 540 criteria, then he's able to benefit from the Cal Grant, and thus he's able to marry that Cal Grant with the Samaritan Scholarship and make his higher education affordable. So that's what I wanted to point out, and just encourage you to really look at the big picture of how you can package your whole financial aid resources, and look at what the institution can provide, what the government can provide, and then also the cost of living, if the institution can provide housing and whatnot. All those factors you want to take into consideration. Next slide, please. So here's something that's in your control. You can apply for financial aid every year before March 2nd. Now we have 13 days left. So these are the options, either the FAFSA or the CADA. You don't do both, so it's either or. And in this case, for undocumented students, it would be the CADA, the California Dream Act application. And that's the one I've circled. And I put a note at the bottom that says, remember to include the code for every institution the student applies for so that the financial aid department could offer a financial aid package. Even if you're just thinking, I might go there, put the code down. That way the institution receives the information and they can package a financial aid offer for you. If you don't put the code, they can't make an offer. They can't see your information. So I highly encourage you to just list all the institutions, public and private, public and independent. Okay, next slide. Additional step in the financial aid process for our institutions, we have 14 AACU institutions that require this additional step. It's called the CSS Profile. And this provides additional insight into the family's income and assets so that they can offer additional aid from the endowments, from private gifts to the institution. I transferred from community college to USC. USC is one of the institutions that requires the CSS profile. It's well worth your time. I was able to receive scholarships on top of my Cal Grant, Pell Grant. I received the Mexican American Alumni Association Scholarship, the Norman Topping Student Aid Fund Scholarship. So it's worth your time to fill out these applications, and it's free. The application is free for families whose income is less than $100,000 a year. Next slide, please. Okay, so AACU as a higher education sector, we have over 80 member institutions. All our institutions are WASC Senior College and University Commission accredited. So that means all our institutions are degree granting nonprofit. That distinguishes us from the private for-profits. I want to make sure that you understand the distinction between, we like to use the phrase independent colleges and universities because we like to distinguish ourselves from the private for-profits that have gotten into trouble in the past from defrauding students and leaving them, out to dry, and they end up having to close doors and leaving the students without any kind of recourse to finish their degree. That's not who we represent. Our institutions are well-established anchor institutions that have been around for a long time. Our association started in 1955, and it actually started to coordinate the Cal Grant program. Back in the day, it was called the State Scholarship Program. There was a capacity issue with the public institutions. So the state created the State Scholarship Program, now known as the Cal Grant Program, so that students can take their award and take it wherever they want to choose, whether it's a public or a private, and choose the education that they wanted. So I like to highlight that. And this is a picture of our students in front of the Capitol advocating for their Cal Grant. And so that's part of my portfolio, is focusing on the public policy, strategic focus, and collaborating with folks on that. Next slide, please. So what makes our AACU institutions unique. We have Hispanic serving institutions, first-gen programs. Also, our average class size ratio is 11 students to 1 faculty member. Excuse me. This is a picture of the Chicano Latino graduation in front of at the Claremont colleges. You're going to hear from my colleague Daniel, so he can talk a little bit more about personalized services on campus. Next slide, please. Okay, so we talked about filling out the CADA, the CSS profile, and then leveraging your personal and your academic profiles. Next slide, please. I want to get to the important piece, step-by-step admissions process. Okay, so I want to highlight, what I want to highlight here is the Common App will make your life easier. If you're applying to an independent college or university, we have over 40 that participate in Common App. So if you're a first-year student, you're going to click on the button that says first-year student. If you're a transfer student, click on the button that says transfer student. And everything's done all online now. So you engage your recommenders by sending them the link. Make sure you engage thought partners. You don't submit your essays, your essay prompts on the first draft. Have 2 or 3 people looking at it and just do your best. What institutions are looking at is like your passion, your interest for that particular institution. Next slide, please. Okay, set deadlines for yourself, visit the websites, talk to your admissions and financial aid counselors, ask questions. I always tell the parents in Spanish, no cobramos por preguntar. You know, we're not going to charge you for asking. So yeah, the information is free. Next slide, please. Okay, this is what I wanted to highlight. So now in the Common App, this is a new feature, I think as of last year. There's an option to designate your birth country, region, territory. There's a DACA undocumented status. And what this will do, it'll flag it for the admissions and financial aid department so that they know to look for your California DREAM Act application. So this is important. Next slide, please. Okay, these are the highlights of the survey that I mentioned. We surveyed our institutions and we want to just highlight here how we learned that out of 92 responses, okay, this represented 55 AACCU member institutions, and over 60% of them said they provide tailored admissions and financial aid services, CADA completion assistance. So take advantage of that. And then 41% provide academic wraparound services throughout the year. And then in regards to financial aid and institutional aid, you can see the percentages and the numbers here on the ones that offer internships and fellowships, undocumented student scholarships, almost 50%, institutional funded emergency grants, and then the endowments, 38%. That's huge. So make sure you're looking into that. And key examples of institutional best practices, we heard that training for staff on how to support undocumented students was crucial. For example, emerging from COVID, and then the undocu allyship. A lot of our institutions are adopting the butterfly logo on their signatures, or even listing out on their website the names of faculty and staff that are that identify as undocu allies. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the California Undocumented Student Resources Map that I mentioned earlier. We partnered with the Campaign for College Opportunity. They are the lead on this map, but it's also the Southern California SoCalCan who manages the back end of this tool. So you have all higher ed segments here with their points of contacts for the Undocu liaisons. So we have 12 of our institutions listed on here. And this is an example of what it looks like if you were to click on one of the green markers. So I'm highlighting here Whittier College, for example. You can find the person's name, their office number, email, and just feel free to reach out to them and ask them questions. You know, how can I apply for a scholarship, or how can I apply as an undocumented student? Next slide, please. Okay, this is an example of, you know, the advocacy and collaborative work that I mentioned with some of the organizations. I mentioned ICAP, our student advocacy program, FCAP, the student program at Fresno Pacific University. We had the student budget advocacy event. So these are the types of events, informative events that we do when the DACA decision came out the summer, 2 summers ago. We had two virtual events to explain to people what was going on with that, with DACA. So reach out to us. And if there's an event that you want to collaborate with us on, reach out to me and I'm happy to collaborate with you, your organization or your institution and whatnot. And then I included the logo here for the SEAT website. We're going to have a relaunch of this student-led website that was created by our ICAP cohort last year. So more on that, I'll be sharing that information with the California Dream Network shortly. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are some upcoming events for AACU, our campus weeks for first-time freshmen and transfer students on the next slide. Yeah, there you go. California Community College transfer students. Next slide, please. We have every region of the state covered. And then here's a picture of our college guide, transfer guide, where you can find high-level information for each of our institutions. And this is updated annually. Next slide, please. Okay, and that brings me to a close. I'm happy to answer any questions, maybe after Daniel goes, because I know he's short on time.
Thank you, Susan. So I'm assistant director at Pomona College. I specifically work with our first gen and or low income students at Pomona College. And I also support our undocumented, documented student community here at Pomona College specifically. But also my work supports the consortium, which is the other 4 colleges here at the Inland Empire. Here we go to the next slide. I'll just discuss a little bit about our on-campus resources, specifically for our undocumented DACA mixed status immigrant student community here at our Pomona College. I would like to start off with our SAGE Pro Bono Immigration Legal Resource Network. It's a network that's composed of alumni, all immigration lawyers or work in the legal profession, and they currently support our current students and immediate alumni, those that either graduated within the past 2 years of their graduation date. And the resources through this legal resource network extends to immediate family members, for example, siblings, parents, and as some rare cases, first cousins and extended family. We also have Monsoor Counseling and Psychological Service, it's MCAPS for short. And we have professional therapists, psychologists who are culturally competent with working with a lot of our marginalized, underrepresented groups here at Pomona College and at the 5 Cs. So in case of one of our students that identifies as undocumented or documented or experiencing some mental anguish, they have the ability to reserve and make appointments with these counselors and support them in any way we can, or either that or offsite referrals at any given moment. And when it comes to financial aid, I would like to share that if you don't know, Pomona College is a need blind institution, meaning they don't consider an applicant's financial situation into consideration. So they support all student applicants, whether they're international or domestic. They're all seen as domestic students. So as an undocumented individual, you'll be seen as receiving the same financial aid package, whether it's involving different type of outside scholarships or a mix of both. But Pomona College has the ability and an abundance of financial resources to really present applicants with a lucrative financial aid package in terms of competing with other colleges that students have applied to. We also have Dean of Students Office. Within that office that I work under, we have the ability to provide emergency grants to our undocumented students, whether they're having experience an immediate need, whether it be a broken laptop or for whatever reason, some classes were destroyed, they can reach out to Dean of Students Office and emergency grants will be offered to students. And this also underlines the other really, really neat thing about the college and how it's backed institutionally in terms of supporting our documented community, where they're committed to paying for renewals for our students or for either first-time applicants for DACA as well. And of course, one of the things that Pomona College really prides itself is the opportunity and encouragement of all of our students to participate in study abroad or domestic exchange opportunities, which includes for those that are able to and eligible are DACA recipients, whether it be study abroad or going to a different college for a semester or two. Given the circumstances and how we're transitioning to a new White House administration, we're working toward trying to get as many students that are eligible to go study abroad, take that opportunity either in their second or third year, which has kind of historically been the year that many of our students have that ability to do so. But given the COVID and the pandemic, it's been really challenging to really have adequate programs in which students are really interested in participating in. One thing that definitely we pride ourselves is trying to navigate these very red tape, the bureaucracy in terms of supporting those students that don't have status and seeking either experiential learning or the opportunity to have employment on campus. And one way to mitigate that we currently do is we offer campus fellowships for experiential learning through our career center on campus, where students that have the opportunity to do an independent project and they receive a stipend, half of it beginning of the proposal and the other half of the stipend once it's completed in a semester. So this is specifically made for our undocumented students that don't have DACA. And of course we have PSIP, summer experience, and PSIP fall or spring semester opportunities where a student has the ability to secure a non-paid internship either on campus or in the surrounding community. And through the Career Development Office, they receive a stipend for their experience and the hours they put in towards this non-paid opportunity. Many of our students, regardless of their status, participate and come back with very fruitful experiences and enjoy trying to provide those resources and opportunities to future students. You can go to the next slide. And one thing I would definitely want to highlight is our student groups on campus. We do have an Ideas Club. This Ideas Club is 5C, meaning that it supports all students across the 5 colleges. It's more of course cross-campus support for undocumented students and allies. So you don't have to recognize yourself as a self-identified undocumented student, but there's also mixed status students that also really work towards social justice in the undocumented community as well. And of course, faculty and staff support them. And of course, I oversee the Ideas Mentoring Group, which is a mentoring program that is specifically designed to support first-year students that identify as undocumented or documented on our campus. Given that one thing that's very unique about Pomona College is that we have a community of undocumented and documented students that are from across the country. So it's very crucial for me to know about the policies, state policies, are impacting our students when they go back home or their way in terms of traveling to Pomona College. That's one thing in terms of our population here that is unique, is that, you know, we have our students come from all over the country, and they want to come to Pomona College for not just the academics, but also because, you know, of the type of resources and allies and the work that we continue to do to support our students. That's some of the really key things that Pomona College really prides itself in terms of supporting our undocumented community. And I know that many other institutions are leading the way in terms of, you know, moving forward and making more inclusive practices to support all of our students, and specifically those that don't have status. And that's one thing where Pomona College is very unique in the way in which, given that Susan mentioned before, it's one of the participating institutions in which many students would love to have across, you know, the country, that also institutions recognize our students and being able to provide the adequate and necessary resources for them to not just only go into college, but thrive as well, and, you know, see them out in terms of their post academic journey. But if you have any questions, my emails and one of the slides, feel free to, you know, send me any information regarding that you would like to learn about Pomona College, or just have a conversation with myself. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing. Susan, you too. Thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate all the information you're providing for folks, because I'm pretty sure a lot of folks don't have these resources or information of like, oh, wow, I can really go and get a private university education. I know that was something that coming in as an organizer was something that a lot of people kept asking me in terms of transferring. Actually, one of our members used to go to not Whittier College, but Rio Hondo College. And he was looking at his options to see where he wanted to go, and he ended up going to Pomona College, and that's how I'm connected to Daniel. We were able to have a conversation about what is provided there. And then of course, another colleague of mine that used to go and was the coordinator of the Undocumented Resource Center for Cal Poly Pomona, also is currently the director of the API Center there at Pomona College. So you have a lot of support on that campus, and many Claremont colleges as well. So thank you again for coming. I want to remind all of y'all that we aren't done. There's still more workshops going on. So next week, our organizer, Eva, our Northern Regional organizer, is gonna host our resource at UC System workshop, February 23rd, same time, y'all, 3 p.m. And some of y'all are probably thinking like, man, 3 p.m., I'm in the middle of school. It's okay, y'all. We're gonna be recording this again. I know it's gonna be available for you, so no worries. Still register though, because we wanna know who are the people that we send these resources to. This, we're also gonna be asking our presenters for the slides that they just provided. So we will be sharing that with once we're done with this. And again, if you are interested in joining, getting yourself your advocacy or leadership development, you can contact us, the California Dream team up in here. We have Lupita, who's the LA Coastal organizer, our statewide CDN organizer. Gloria, who's representing Central Valley. As you heard Susan say, there are some universities there, private universities in Fresno, that need that support. Gloria's your girl to go to. And then you have Eva, the Northern Regional organizer, who you can contact for any questions that you have regarding the workshops that we're doing or ways that you can get yourself involved, because we're able to do all this because of the advocacy work of so many before us. So thank you again for joining us. Eva, if you can stop the recording so we